The floodwaters finally disappeared. Sunlight returned, and for the first time in days, the forest seemed to breathe again. Across the village, nomads slowly emerged from their hollows. Some inspected damaged tunnel walls. Others gathered broken tools to rush in water as children laughed as they splashed through the last shallow puddles. Life was beginning to feel normal again. Relief spread from hollow to hollow. Everyone smiled. Everyone except Porky. He stood quietly near Hollow 7. His eyes rested on the empty flood basket, the basket that should have been full, the basket the village had been forced to replace because of him. Porky lowered his head. It should have never happened. Tim stepped into the center of the village. His voice carried beneath the towering roots. The flood is over. Smiles spread everywhere. Today, he lifted an empty gathering basket. We replace every Hollow's flood food. Cheers answered him. Families gathered baskets woven from reeds. Hunters checked stone knives and gathering hooks. Children hurried beside their parents. Normal life had returned, or so everyone believed. Then everything stopped. From the edge of the forest, a fox stepped into the village. Silence. Its ears twitched. Its nose lifted. It sniffed once. Then again. The scent was everywhere. Food, smoke, people. The fox slowly approached the nearest hollow. No one moved. The elders watched. The animal lowered its head and sniffed the entrance. Its ears perked. Then, scratch! Its front paws exploded into motion. Bark flew through the air. The hollow shook. Children screamed, "Move!" Parents grabbed their families and rushed deeper into the tunnels. The fox dug harder. Again, again, again. Inside one hollow, a father pushed his family farther into the darkness. "Hurry!" The scratching grew louder. Wood splintered. Then, a massive paw burst through the entrance. Sharp claws searched blindly through the hollow, and one of them caught hold of a young nomad's tunic. The beaver disappeared beneath the still water. Silence settled across the valley. For one long moment, no one moved. Then cheers erupted through the canopy. The beaver listened. Did you see that? It obeyed her. Rootborn hurried toward Shelia. Some smiled. Some stared. Others whispered quietly among themselves. Shelia forced a smile, but something felt different. No one looked at her the way they had yesterday. Children peeked from behind their parents. Hunters nodded respectfully as she passed. Even the elders watched her a little longer than before. She wasn't being treated like a child anymore. She wasn't sure what she was becoming. As evening settled over the forest, Shelia sat alone on one of the branch walkways. The gentle breeze swayed the towering trees. Below, the endless forest faded into darkness. She thought about the beaver. She hadn't forced it. She hadn't even understood what she was doing. It had simply responded. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "You've been quiet." Shelia looked up. Her mother smiled gently. "I'm fine." Sheba wasn't convinced. "You've hardly said a word since we came home." Shelia looked back across the forest. "Finally," she whispered, "everybody looks at me differently." She lowered her eyes. "I don't know why." Sheba quietly sat beside her. Neither of them spoke. The forest did all the talking. Far away, an owl called into the coming night. Shelia wrapped her arms around her knees. For the first time in her life, she didn't know where she belonged. The fox pulled. For one terrifying moment, the tiny body slid toward daylight. The father lunged. He caught hold of the nomad's arm. No! The claw stretched tight. The fox growled and pulled harder. The father planted his feet. His spear rested against the tunnel wall. He reached for it with his free hand. His fingers barely touched the shaft. Then he grabbed it. With one desperate thrust, he struck the fox across the nose. The fox yelped. Its head jerked backward. Its claws released. The young nomad tumbled safely into the father's arms. The family collapsed together, brief and hard. Outside, the fox shook his head. It snorted angrily, then looked back toward the hollow. Instead of leaving, it began digging again, harder. The entire village went silent. Hours passed. No one dared leave. No one could gather food. No one could restock a single hollow. Porky stood in the darkness, listening to the fox move from entrance to entrance, sniffing, digging, searching. Every scratch against the bark made the weight inside him grow heavier. Hollow Seven's flood basket remained empty, and now the fox was keeping everyone from replacing it. One thought refused to leave him. This is my fault. Inside Hollow 7, Tim looked toward the ceiling. They're getting hungry. An elder nodded. They'll have to wait. Tim hated those words. Outside, the fox finally stopped digging. Its ears turned. Its nose lifted into the wind. Then, without warning, it wandered back into the forest. The village remained frozen. No one moved. Not yet. One elder slowly stepped from his hollow. He searched the tree line. Nothing. Another elder joined him. Still nothing. Tim emerged with his spear ready. He watched the woods for another long moment. Finally, he lowered it. It's gone. Relief spread across the village. Families slowly came out. Several hollows were scarred with deep claw marks. One entrance had nearly been torn open. Everyone stared at the damage. The village would never feel quite as safe again. Tim broke the silence. We've lost enough time. He lifted his basket. Let's gather food. The villagers prepared to leave. Porky never moved. His eyes remained fixed on Hollow 7. Daniel's father placed a hand on his shoulder. We'll have the basket full again before nightfall. Porky forced a smile. I know. But he didn't believe it. The next morning, Porky sat alone outside the village. Everyone else prepared for another day's work. Hunters sharpened stone blades. Gatherers checked their baskets. Life had begun moving forward. Everyone seemed ready. Everyone except Porky. He quietly picked up a small travel sack, a few dry berries, his knife, a rolled sleeping hide. Nothing more. He looked back at the village one last time. They'll be better off. Then he turned toward the forest. Where are you going? Porky stopped. He already knew the voice. Slowly, he turned around. Susie stood behind him, staring at the sack. Porky, what are you doing? He couldn't meet her eyes. I can't stay. Morning sunlight filtered through the towering canopy. The Rootborn village slowly came to life. Children hurried across the branch roads. Hunters prepared for another day beyond the valley. Builders gathered fresh vines for repairs. Everything looked normal. But to Shalia, nothing felt the same. She found her mother standing near the edge of a great branch, watching the forest awaken beneath them. Mom, Sheba turned and smiled. You're awake early. Shalia walked beside her. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, Shalia broke the silence. What happened to me? Sheba didn't answer immediately. She simply gazed across the endless sea of trees. I've been asking myself the same question. Shalia frowned. You don't know? Sheba slowly shook her head. No, I don't. She looked at her daughter. But after yesterday, I finally understand something. Shelia waited. When I was your age, my mother was different. Shelia listened carefully. Wild animals never feared her. Birds landed beside her. Deer stood close enough to touch. Even the wild creatures seemed to know her. I always believed she was simply patient. She smiled softly. Now, I'm not so sure. Shelia looked toward the forest. You think she could do what I did? I don't know. Sheba answered honestly. She never talked about it, and I never asked. I thought it was simply who she was. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves around them. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Shelia whispered, So, who am I? Sheba reached over. She gently took her daughter's hand. I don't know who you're becoming, but I do know this. She smiled warmly. You are still my daughter. And whatever this is, God gave it to you for a reason. Shelia looked back across the valley. The answers weren't there, only more questions. Yet somehow, they no longer frightened her. She took a slow breath, then nodded. If there is an answer, I'm going to find it. Far above the canopy, something moved silently through the morning. The next morning, Shelia found Enoch waiting beneath one of the great oaks. He smiled as she approached. I was wondering when you'd come. Shelia looked surprised. You knew I was coming? Enoch chuckled. When someone discovers something they don't understand, they eventually start looking for answers. Shelia smiled. I have a lot of questions. So do I. He motioned toward a nearby branch. A robin hopped quietly among the leaves. Let's begin. Shelia looked at the bird. What do I do? Enoch shrugged. The same thing you did with the beaver. She closed her eyes. She focused. Nothing. The robin continued pecking at the bark. It never even looked her way. Shelia opened one eye. Nothing happened. Enoch nodded. Try again. She took a slow breath. She tried once more. Still nothing. The robin suddenly flew away. Shelia sighed. I don't understand. Enoch pointed toward a squirrel racing along another branch. Try that one. Shelia watched it carefully. She reached out with her thoughts. Nothing. The squirrel disappeared into a hollow. She frowned. It still isn't working. Enoch folded his arms. What were you feeling when you spoke to the beaver? Shelia thought for a moment. I wasn't trying to command it. I was trying to save everyone. Enoch nodded slowly. So perhaps this isn't about control. Shelia looked at him. Then what is it about? He smiled. I don't know. They both laughed. Enoch pointed toward the branch where the robin had been. Let's ask better questions. Was the beaver closer than the robin? Shelia thought about it. No, it was much farther away. Enoch nodded. So distance probably isn't the answer. He continued. Were you afraid that day? A little. Were you thinking about yourself? She shook her head. No, I was thinking about everyone else. Enoch smiled. Good. Now we're learning. Shelia looked puzzled. We didn't accomplish anything. I disagree. He looked out across the endless forest. Yesterday, you discovered something extraordinary. Today, we discovered how little we understand it. Shelia laughed softly. I guess that is progress. It is. Enoch rested a hand on her shoulder. Answers rarely come all at once. They come, one question at a time. Shelia looked across the endless forest. Somewhere out there, the truth was waiting. She simply had to keep searching. Neither of them noticed. High above the canopy, a pair of enormous golden eyes watching from the shadows. Susie's heart sank. What do you mean you can't stay? Porky swallowed hard. The flood, the basket, the fox. He slowly shook his head. Everything keeps getting worse. Susie stepped closer. That isn't because of you. For the first time, Porky looked into her eyes. It feels like it is. He tightened his grip on the travel sack. I'm tired of everybody paying for my mistakes. I'm not going to be a burden anymore. Tears filled Susie's eyes. She grabbed his arm. No, you belong here. Porky gently slipped free. I don't. She shook her head. Yes, you do. He turned away. She took one desperate step after him. Porky, I love you. He froze. The forest became silent. For one long moment, it looked as though he might turn around. Instead, he closed his eyes. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Without another word, he walked into the trees. Susie's voice broke behind him. Porky, come back. I love you. But Porky never looked back. The forest swallowed him. Her tears fell silently. A moment later, footsteps rushed through the village. Her father emerged from the edge of the forest. He had been checking the trails after the fox finally disappeared. The moment he saw her, he knew something was wrong. Susie, he hurried toward her. Why are you crying? She tried to answer. The words caught in her throat. Finally, she whispered, Porky's gone. Her father frowned. What do you mean he's gone? He left. He said he didn't want to be a burden anymore. She pointed toward the forest. I tried to stop him. I told him I loved him. He just kept walking. Her father looked toward the trees. Without another word, he ran. Porky. His voice echoed beneath the giant branches. Nothing. He searched every trail Porky liked to use. The berry patches, the mushroom logs, the small stream where Porky often gathered berries. Nothing. Porky had too much of a head start. After nearly an hour, he finally turned back toward the village. Tim looked up as Susie's father came running into the gathering circle. One look at his face, and Tim stood. What happened? Susie's father caught his breath. Porky's gone. He left the village. Silence settled over everyone. Tim didn't say a word. He walked to the weapon rack, lifted his bow, slung his quiver across his shoulder. Daniel's father watched him. Tim, what are you about to do? Tim looked toward the forest. His voice was steady. What any father would do. I'm going to get my son. No one hesitated. 3 elders stepped forward. We're coming. Another reached for his own bow. So am I. Within moments, the village came alive, not with panic, with purpose. Hunters checked their arrows. Others filled water skins. Travel packs were gathered. One elder stopped beside Tim. And if that fox is still out there, Tim reached into the small leather pouch at his belt. He carefully removed one tiny arrow. Its obsidian tip glistened with a dark coating. That's why these are coated. The elder nodded. Against a rabbit, a clean arrow was enough. Against something as large as a fox, every advantage mattered. Nearby, Chip had heard everything. He walked toward his father. Dad, Porky's been gone a long time. How are you going to find him? Tim smiled. With God, all things are possible. Chip thought quietly. Then his eyes drifted upward. The ravens. A smile slowly spread across his face. You taught me something. Tim looked at him. What was that? Prayer is insurance.
But actions are payment. Tim smiled. I remember saying that. Chip pointed toward the giant birds perched above the village. What if you don't search from the ground? The men looked up. Silence. One elder finally spoke. We'd see farther. Another nodded. But we've never written them. Tim looked from the ravens to Chip, then back again. A grin slowly spread across his face. I guess we're building those saddles sooner than we planned. He turned toward the village. Bring me the extra rabbit hide from the bunker. I'll get the sinew, one elder answered. And the bone needles, another called. The village scattered in every direction. For the second time in only a few days, everyone shared one purpose: bring Porky home. The village worked quickly. No one complained. No one questioned why. Every hand had a purpose. Tim spread rabbit hide across smooth pieces of bark. It has to fit the ravens without hurting them. One elder measured another hide. Another twisted fresh sinew into strong cord. Bone needles passed from hand to hand. Carefully, piece by piece, 4 lightweight saddles began to take shape. Chip watched every step. So that's why you saved all the extra hide? Tim smiled without looking up. A nomad wastes nothing. If the forest gives us something, we honor it by using all of it. Before long, the 4 saddles were finished. Simple, light, strong. Tim looked toward the 4 great ravens perched above the village. I hope you all like them. The ravens tilted their heads, almost as if they understood. A few villagers laughed, one by one. The elders carefully climbed onto the great branch where the ravens waited. Slowly, they secured a saddle onto each bird. The ravens shifted their wings, testing the unfamiliar weight. Everyone held their breath. For one long moment, nothing happened. Then, one after another, the ravens settled calmly beneath their riders. Tim smiled. I think that's a yes. Quiet laughter spread through the village. Chip stepped closer. Who's leading? Tim tightened the last strap. I am. One elder frowned. You sure? Tim nodded. If I ask another father to risk his life for my son, I better be willing to risk mine first. No one argued. The elder simply nodded. They all understood. One by one, the 4 nomads climbed into their saddles. The village watched in silence. History was about to be made.
The sun slipped behind the towering forest. One by one, golden rays disappeared beneath the endless leaves. Night settled over the canopy. Lanterns carved from hollow nuts flickered to life. Families gathered for supper. Children laughed as they hurried across the branch roads. The fear of the beaver had begun to fade. High above the forest floor, the Rootborn believed they were safe. Caleb wasn't finished working. He stood beside one of the main walkways. Several younger builders waited nearby. Fresh vines lay coiled at their feet. Caleb inspected every knot, every support, every woven handrail. He gave one final tug. It'll hold. One of the younger builders smiled. You always know. Caleb chuckled. I've learned something. The forest is always stronger than we are. Our job is to work with it. The younger builders nodded. They gathered their tools. Soon, the branch roads grew quiet. Not far away, Enoch stood beside Shelia. She closed her eyes once more. A small songbird rested on a nearby branch. She reached out with her thoughts. Nothing. The bird fluttered away. Shelia sighed. I still can't do it. Enoch smiled. You couldn't make the sunrise happen either. But it still came. She looked at him. Some things happen When the time is right. Shalia nodded. She wasn't convinced, but she trusted him. The forest grew quieter. Even the insects seemed to stop singing. Enoch slowly lifted his head. Do you hear that? Shelia listened. Nothing. Exactly nothing. The silence felt wrong. Far above, hidden among the highest branches, two enormous golden eyes opened. A shadow shifted. Silent, patient, watching, waiting. The hunters never saw it. The builders never heard it. The families beneath the canopy had no idea that something was already hunting them.
The silence didn't last. A sharp cry split the darkness. One of the night watchmen looked up. What was that? Before anyone could answer, a massive shadow burst through the canopy. Its wings spread wider than a grown Rootborn's home. The great owl dropped without a sound. Only the rush of wind announced its attack. Look out! The warning came too late. A young Rootborn carrying a basket of herbs stepped onto an open branch road. The owl struck. Its talons slammed into the wooden walkway. The force threw the young Rootborn backward. The basket exploded into the air. Leaves scattered like rain. The owl struck again. Its talons searched wildly. The young Rootborn scrambled backward, barely escaping the razor-sharp claws. Hunters rushed from every direction. Spears! Bows! The great owl spread its wings. A deep hoot rolled through the forest like distant thunder. Then it launched back into the darkness. Arrows chased after it. None found their mark. Within seconds, the giant bird disappeared into the night sky. Silence returned. No one moved. The shattered basket lay scattered across the branch road. Fresh claw marks gouged deep into the living wood. The young Rootborn sat trembling, unable to speak. Caleb slowly knelt beside him. Are you hurt? The young man swallowed hard, then slowly shook his head. I don't think so. Caleb helped him to his feet. Enoch stared into the darkness above. His face grew solemn. We've always watched the forest floor. He slowly lifted his eyes toward the canopy, but we forgot. The forest has another hunter. Around them, families stepped quietly from their homes. Parents gathered frightened children into their arms. No one laughed now. No one hurried across the branch roads. For the first time, the Rootborn truly understood. Living high among the trees didn't place them beyond danger. It simply meant their greatest danger could come from above. Tim settled into his saddle. He tested each strap one last time. Nothing shifted. Nothing slipped. He looked down at the village. Every eye was fixed on him. Chip stepped forward. You ready? Tim smiled. I'll let you know when we land. A few nervous laughs broke the silence. Tim gently rested a hand against his raven's neck. The giant bird turned its head. For a moment, they simply looked at one another. Then Tim nodded. Let's bring him home. The ravens crouched. Powerful wings spread wide. Wind swept across the village. Leaves danced beneath the towering roots. Then, with four mighty leaps, the ravens launched. Gasps echoed through the village. The birds climbed above the trees. Higher, higher. Soon the village disappeared beneath the endless forest canopy. Tim had never seen a world like this before. The forest stretched in every direction, a sea of green. Trees that had always seemed enormous now formed an endless nation of giants. Creeks shimmered beneath the leaves. Game trails wound through the undergrowth. Everything looked different from above. One elder called from a nearby raven. I can see for miles, another pointed. Look, a deer. Far below, a whitetail moved quietly through the brush. Tim smiled. So this is what they see every day. The four ravens spread out. Each searched a different stretch of forest. Tim scanned every opening beneath the trees, every rocky hill, every fallen log. Nothing. Then, his raven gave a sudden squawk. Its head turned sharply. Tim followed its gaze. There, far below, a tiny figure knelt beside a patch of mushrooms. Porky? Alive. Tim's face softened. I found you. Before anyone could celebrate, movement caught his eye. Between the trees, a fox stepped quietly into the clearing. It hadn't seen the ravens. It hadn't seen the elders. Its eyes were fixed on Porky, still gathering mushrooms, still completely unaware. Tim's smile vanished. His voice turned sharp. Down! Morning came, but the canopy didn't sound the same. Children no longer raced across the branch roads. Parents walked beside them. Hunters looked upward as often as they looked ahead. Every passing shadow made someone stop. Every rush of wings turned every head. The owl had changed everything. Near the center of the village, the elders gathered. Caleb stood beside one of the open walkways. His fingers traced the woven handrail. Then he looked toward the branches overhead. We've protected ourselves from what walks below. He paused. Now, we must protect ourselves from what flies above. The elders nodded. One of the hunters spoke. We can't cover every branch. Caleb smiled. We don't have to. He knelt beside a living vine, gently lifting it into his hands. The forest has already given us what we need. The others watched. We'll weave living vines over the busiest branch roads. Not solid roofs, just enough to break a hunter's dive. He pointed toward a fork where several branches met. And here, we'll weave hidden alcoves, places where our people can step aside until danger passes. The elders exchanged thoughtful glances. One finally smiled. It could work. Caleb stood. Then let's begin. Within moments, builders scattered throughout the canopy. Bundles of fresh vines were gathered. Bone knives trimmed young growth. Others climbed into the highest branches. Before long, the sound of weaving echoed through the trees. While the builders worked, Enoch found Shelia sitting quietly near the edge of the village. She watched them in silence. So, Enoch asked gently, what are you thinking? Shelia kept her eyes on the workers. Yesterday, everyone was talking about me. She glanced toward the damaged walkway. Today, everyone's talking about the owl. Enoch sat beside her. The forest has a way of reminding us that every day brings a different lesson. Shelia lowered her eyes. I still don't understand what happened with the beaver. Enoch smiled. And Caleb doesn't yet know if these walkways will work. She looked at him. So, we both keep learning? Enoch nodded. Exactly. Above them, the builders continued weaving fresh vines across the open branch roads. Slowly, the canopy itself was beginning to evolve. The ravens folded their wings and dropped toward the forest. Branches rushed past. Leaves whipped against the elders' faces. Tim never took his eyes off Porky. Easy, he whispered to his raven. We're almost there. Below, Porky smiled to himself. His little gathering sack was nearly full. A handful of mushrooms, fresh berries, enough to eat for another day. Maybe he really could survive out here. He reached for one last mushroom. A twig snapped. Porky froze. Slowly. He looked up. A fox stood only a few yards away. Its ears stood tall. Its nose twitched. For one long moment, neither moved. The fox hadn't been hunting Porky. It had simply wandered into the same clearing. Then instinct took over. The fox lunged. Porky spun and ran. The forest exploded around him. Roots became walls. Stones became cliffs. Every fallen branch became another obstacle. Behind him, heavy paws pounded the forest floor. The fox was gaining. Porky scrambled over a moss-covered root, slipped, caught himself, kept running. His heart pounded so hard he could barely breathe. Ahead, the ground disappeared, a rocky ledge. He skidded to a stop. Far below, a steep drop vanished into the trees. He looked left, solid rock. He looked right, solid rock. Behind him, the fox slowly stepped into the clearing. Its tail swayed. Its yellow eyes never left him. Porky backed to the very edge. Pebbles tumbled over the cliff. He looked down. If he jumped, the fall would kill him. If he stayed, the fox would. His voice barely escaped. Lord, I could really use some help. Above, 4 familiar shadows swept across the rocks. The fox looked up. Too late. The ravens burst through the trees. Tim stood in his saddle, bow already in his hands. He pointed toward the fox. Loose! Tiny arrows streaked through the air.
One arrow struck the fox's shoulder. Another buried into his neck. A third caught his flank. The fox yelped. It spun wildly, snapping at the tiny shafts. The venom began working almost immediately. Not enough to kill, just enough to burn, just enough to convince the fox that this meal wasn't worth the pain. With one final growl, it bolted into the forest. Silence returned. Porky's knees gave out. He collapsed against the rocks, breathing hard. Tim climbed down from the raven, walked over slowly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Tim smiled. Told you. Porky looked up. Told me what? Tim reached out his hand. Home comes looking for family. Porky's eyes filled with tears. He took Tim's hand. Tim pulled him to his feet. We've all been worried sick. Porky lowered his head. I'm sorry. Tim rested a hand on his shoulder. We'll talk on the way home. Then he smiled. But first, he looked toward the waiting raven. Let's get my son home. The flight home felt different. No one hurried. The danger was over. Below them, the forest rolled by like an endless sea of green. Porky looked down. He had never realized how small the village really was. Hidden beneath the giant roots, it had completely disappeared beneath the forest canopy. No wonder the fox had wandered into it. No wonder no one had seen it coming. As the village came into view, children were already pointing toward the sky. They're back! They found him! Cheers spread from hollow to hollow. The raven circled once, then gently landed in the center of the village. Before Porky could climb down, Susie came running. She threw her arms around him. He held her tightly. I'm sorry. She shook her head. You're home. For a long moment, neither of them wanted to let go. For the next several days, the sound of weaving echoed throughout the canopy. Everywhere Shelia looked, someone was working. Long vines stretched from branch to branch. Strong hands braided them together. Children gathered fresh vines from the lower limbs. Hunters hauled bundles upward. The entire village had become one great workshop. At the center of it all stood Caleb. He walked slowly beneath the growing shelters, stopping often, checking every knot. testing every vine. A young builder smiled. I think this one's finished. Caleb gave the woven roof a firm tug. The living vines barely moved. He smiled. Now, I think it's finished. The younger builders laughed. Caleb looked around at them. We're not just building roofs. We're building time. The builders looked puzzled. He pointed toward one of the hidden alcoves woven into the side of the walkway. If danger comes, a few seconds can save a life. The young builders nodded. They understood. Nearby, Enoch watched Shelia studying a robin perched only a few feet away. Try again. Shelia closed her eyes. She slowed her breathing. She thought only about the bird. Nothing. The robin fluttered away. She sighed. It still won't work. Enoch smiled. Perhaps you're trying too hard. She opened one eye. How can trying be the problem? He chuckled. When you reached the beaver, you weren't thinking about yourself. You weren't trying to prove anything. You simply wanted to help. Shelia thought about it. He was right. She had never tried to command the beaver. She had only wanted to save everyone. Enoch rested a hand on her shoulder. Some gifts cannot be forced. They must be trusted. Shelia looked toward the builders. The first covered walkway was finally complete. One by one, the Rootborn stepped beneath its woven shelter. Parents walked with their children. Hunters tested the hidden alcoves. Messengers crossed the branches without leaving the protection of the vines. For the first time in generations, the Rootborn could move through the canopy at night without feeling completely exposed. Quiet smiles spread from face to face. Caleb watched in silence. Then he looked toward the darkening sky. We're ready, he hoped. The forest agreed. The first night arrived quietly. Moonlight spilled across the endless canopy. The new covered walkway stretched from branch to branch. Living vines formed gentle arches overhead. Hidden alcoves rested along the sides. Simple, natural, strong. Children no longer hurried home before sunset. Families walked together beneath the woven shelters. For the first time since the attack, peace returned. Caleb stood beside Enoch, watching the village move safely through the new pathways. Enoch smiled. You've changed the way our people will live. Caleb looked up at the woven vines. No, he smiled. The forest showed us how. Not far away. Shelia walked alone beneath one of the new covered paths. Her fingers brushed against the living vines. She could hear the night. Crickets, the breeze, leaves whispering high above. Then everything became still. Shelia stopped. She knew that silence. Slowly, she looked toward the open sky. A massive shadow circled above the canopy. The owl, its golden eyes locked onto her. It folded its wings and dove. Its talons slammed into the woven vines with tremendous force. The entire walkway shuddered. Children screamed. Parents hurried them into the hidden alcoves. The owl struck again. The living vines bent, but they did not break. Again, the great bird attacked. Again, the canopy held. Shelia never ran. She remained beneath the woven shelter, looking into the fierce golden eyes above her. Slowly, she closed her own. She wasn't trying to command it. She wasn't trying to control it. She simply opened her heart without speaking. She reached out with a single thought. We are not your food. A long moment passed, then another. The owl struck no more. It landed on a nearby branch. Its great head slowly turned, watching her. Shelia took one careful step forward. still beneath the shelter. Again, her thoughts reached toward the great bird. We are your friends. The owl blinked. It tilted its head. For one quiet moment, predator and child simply looked at one another. Then, without a sound, the great owl spread its wings and disappeared into the night. The forest became quiet once more. Behind her, Sheba had witnessed everything. Tears filled her eyes, not from fear, from understanding. She walked to her daughter. Neither spoke for a long moment. Finally, Sheba smiled. I don't know what this gift is. She gently placed a hand on Shelia's shoulder. But now, I know it is real. Shelia looked toward the stars above the canopy. The questions were still there. But now, so was hope. She smiled softly. This is only the beginning. Far beyond the trees, the forest waited, and somewhere within its endless mysteries, the answers were waiting too. Tim climbed down from the raven. The elders gathered around him. One of them looked toward the scarred hollows. The fox showed us something. Another nodded. We've lived too low for too long. Tim looked at the deep claw marks carved into the bark. He remembered the frightened child nearly pulled from its home. Then he looked up. High above, massive roots wrapped around the trunk. Natural shells, natural protection. A quiet smile crossed his face. We don't abandon our homes. We move them. The elders followed his gaze. One by one, they nodded. Before the day was over, the sound of stone tools echoed through the forest. New hollows began taking shape, higher among the great roots, closer to the branches, farther from wandering predators. The nomads weren't just rebuilding, they were changing. History had taken another step forward. As evening settled over the village, Porky found Susie sitting alone beneath the roots. Golden light filtered through the leaves above them. He sat beside her. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, Porky broke the silence. When I left, I thought I was protecting everyone. He lowered his eyes. But all I did was hurt the people I love. Susie reached for his hand. You came back. Porky smiled. Because my family came looking for me. He took a slow breath, then looked into her eyes. I don't ever want to run again. He reached into the small gathering sack hanging from his shoulder. Inside rested a tiny ring, braided from forest vines. He had begun weaving it before the flood, waiting for the right moment. He smiled. I guess life decided there's never a perfect moment. He held out the ring. Susie, will you marry me? She didn't hesitate. Yes. She threw her arms around him. They remained there for a long moment. Neither wanted to let go. When they finally stood, they walked back toward the village together, hand in hand. Someone noticed the woven ring, then another. Smiles spread from one hollow to the next. What happened? Porky looked at Susie. She smiled. He finally asked. Cheers erupted beneath the great roots. Even the raven let out a loud squawk from its perch above. Tim looked over. A proud smile spread across his face. One elder laughed. Looks like we'll need to build another hollow. Laughter rolled through the village. As the sun disappeared behind the forest, the nomads celebrated, not just because Porky had come home, not just because new homes would soon rise higher among the roots, but because they had been reminded of something even greater. They were more than neighbors. They were one people, one family, and no burden would ever be carried alone. You've just experienced one chapter of a much larger hidden world. From here, the journey continues in two separate series. Continue with Nomads World. Follow the nomads as they struggle to survive beneath the ancient trees. And Rootborn Chronicles discover a civilization hidden high among the branches. Each series follows a different civilization. Together, they reveal the complete hidden world. Continue with Nomads World and Rootborn Chronicles on the RC Best YouTube channel.